I see Bradley, Chris Ferris. Good morning, everyone. I hope everything's going good. I hope you got an opportunity to join in on the worship with Dave and Joe. It was really amazing. Hi, Eldridge. Hi, Bethany. Hi, Mr. O. Anyway, I just want to wish everyone a happy Mother's Day. I want it to be for all the men and women out there that are filling the role of mother to the children in their lives, whether you have the title or not. Today is the day to celebrate you and everything that you do for the kids and even for our furry friends. So this is a day to celebrate you guys. Hi, Mark. Hi, Eldridge. So I don't know who's been here and who hasn't been here, but we at As Is Church have a mission, and our mission is to share the good news with the broken and the hurting of the world and our neighborhoods. And right now our neighborhood is Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So I encourage you to share this message and all our messages onto your live stream or onto your pages so that the people that are watching and your friends can see everything that God is doing in our lives and the lives of the people that you love. So click the share button and then click the right post and just post it straight to your Facebook page so other people can enjoy it. Hi, Gwenna. Hi, Carol. It's good to see everyone. So this morning we are actually in the 4th week of the Life-Changing Prayer Series. Over the last several weeks, Pastor Scott has encouraged us to pray life-changing prayers that allow God to search us, to break us, and to send us. These are dangerous prayers that invite God to challenge us, to convict us, to grow us, and to transform us. And this morning, we are going to continue on that path. And if you watched last night's my Saturday Night Live Shedcast, I invited everyone to come here to hear my take on change. And personally, I love change, and you will figure out by the end of the message why I feel that way. I'm not going to tell you right now because then you can click off and you won't hear what I have to say. So I know probably a lot of people are shouting, what? You love change? I know change is scary for people, but without change, I personally become stagnant. And while the results of change are always mixed, change has brought much growth in the good to the world, and has also caused casualties. But at the end of the day, we begin to change the day we are born. The challenge really is not to resist change, but to learn how to thrive in it. So before I get into my whole message, I'm just going to share some stuff with you to kind of help you to understand why I have this point of view that I love change. I have a panic disorder. My panic disorder has driven most of my addiction along with my bulimia. And my anxieties and fears become so overwhelming that my body actually fights against each other. The first time I had a panic attack when I was clean, I thought I was going to die. I broke out into an instant sweat, this cold sweat that everything was soaking wet within 2 seconds. I could barely stand up, and it felt like my lungs had collapsed. I could not breathe, while at the same time my mouth was dry and I thought I was going to throw up or something, and I could barely make it into the apartment. And I was outside in the hallway of my apartment building. And when I finally got back into my apartment, I flopped on my bed, and I don't know how long I was there, but I was unable to stop shaking and sweating. And I couldn't calm myself. And I really thought I was dying. I've always had anxiety, but this was another level of anxiety. Even after it was done, my heart raced for days and my mind was uncontrollable. It was impossible to focus on anything, and dread was the name of the story that was constantly playing in my head. And yet this was the beginning of my freedom. You see, I I stopped using, but I did not see or have Jesus in my life. I was still allowing my past circumstances to define my present and my future. And I was using an excuse, not it as an excuse not to engage and control everything, and try to control everything around myself. And panic took me to the end of myself. So now I kind of want to shift gears after confessing who I am to you guys, and I want to take a look at Moses. And I'm not comparing myself to Moses whatsoever, but Moses, he was born and he floated down a river, raised in the Pharaoh's house, killed an Egyptian, ran away, saw a burning bush, was chosen by God, became a great leader, and led the Israelites out of Egypt. I knew all about Moses, or at least I thought I did, when I first attended Aziz Church. He was the guy that parted the Red Sea, gave the Israelites the 10 Commandments. There's actually a movie about him, right? And he was the chosen one of God. But really, I knew nothing about him. I never knew that he floated down the river. I never knew that he was raised by the pharaohs. I didn't know that he had murdered an Egyptian. I thought Moses was perfect. That is why God picked him. In fact, if I'm truthful, I thought the Bible was about perfect people. And as I read the story of Moses, I felt his anxieties and fears. And I remember thinking, could it be the great Moses was just like me? My panic made me want to give up. And for Moses, it was like this. When God appeared to Moses in the burning bush, he asked Moses to go to the Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt. For the first time, first of all, this was God speaking directly to Moses. You would think that that would be enough for Moses to obey, but instead he responded like this: who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children out of Egypt? Then Moses was worried that he was not going to be able to accomplish this task because he was a nobody. Further on in Exodus, God tells Moses about the plan he had for him and how Moses would come out victorious, and still Moses was doubtful and anxious about it all. He says, behold, they will not believe me or listen to my voice. Then God gives Moses two more signs. He says, God then gives Moses two more signs to show that he is Almighty God and nothing can stop his will. He makes Moses' staff turn into a serpent and then turn back into a staff again. And then God makes Moses' leprous hand, his hand you know what I mean, and then restores the hand back to normal. After these two signs, more and more of God's explanation, Moses says, oh my Lord, I am not eloquent, either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue. God then reassures Moses that he will be okay because God will teach him to speak. Moses then says the most anxious thing yet. Oh my Lord, please send someone else. Moses was focusing on himself instead of focusing on God. And that's why he was so anxious and worried. This story of Moses enthralled me. It penetrated my heart because I understood his fears and anxieties, and I saw hope for the first time in a long time. And I thought maybe I can find my place in this place called church. What I would find out on my journey is that anxiety and worry are tools that the enemy has used throughout history to hinder the people of God from moving. I also began to learn about who God was through the story of Moses. And it is in Deuteronomy 31 that I found the answer to my much needed panic. In chapter 31, Moses is coming to the end of his time as a leader of the Israelites. He was told that he would not enter the promised land. There was a transition coming, and I remember being brokenhearted for Moses. All this time he had spent to get to the promised land, and he would die moments before. And Joshua would get all the privilege and all the prestige in saving the Israelites. So if we look at Moses's last console, this is what he says in Exodus chapter 31, verse, I think, 1 through 8. So Moses went and spoke these words to all Israel. And he said to them, I am 121 years old today. I am no longer able to come and go out. And the Lord said to me, you shall not cross the Jordan. It is the Lord your God who will cross ahead of you. He will destroy those nations before you, and you shall dispose of them. Joshua is the one who will go across before you, just as the Lord had said. The Lord will do to them just as he did to the Sihon and the Og, the king of the Amorites, and to their land. When he destroys them, the Lord will hand them over to you, and you shall do them in accordance with all the commandments which I have commanded you. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or tremble in dread before them, for it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not fail you or abandon you. Then Moses called to Joshua and said to him in the sight of the people, be strong and courageous, for you will go with the people into the land which the Lord has sworn to their fathers to give them, and you will give them an inheritance. It is the Lord who goes before you, who will be with you. He will not fail you or abandon you. Do not fear or be dismayed. In that transition, after years of wandering in the desert and relying on God, Moses did not have 1 ounce of fear or anxiety. While I was outraged and disheartened for Moses, Moses was strong in his faith and it moved him. His anxiety no longer was running the show. He knew that God had not forsaken him. He knew that God had gone before him and prepared the way. From that day forward, I prayed to be calm like Moses. In that moment, no matter the transition, no matter the change required, my panic made me want to give up. I didn't have the foundation to sustain that kind of weekly and sometimes daily assault. Without the crutch of my old self, I was afflicted by the very thing that made me dive headfirst into addiction. Lucky for me, God knew me and what it would take for me to return. He sought me, he changed me, he calmed me. Because I was willing to pray a dangerous prayer, even when I didn't know it was dangerous, I had hope for the first time, and I believed that he would go before me as he did for Moses and the Israelites. I didn't even have a clue what I was asking God to do. Calming me was more than releasing me from the throes of a panic attack or the torments of anxiety. Those were welcomed. I wanted those things. But what I didn't understand was that in the shedding of those things, I had to shed the behaviors that created that chaos inside me, that I would need those things to be resolved. Because of the pruning and the pressing of my behaviors and God's loving guidance, my panic is gone and my anxiety is manageable. The journey took years. The change was remarkable and painful. I look back today and think, who was that person? How did she live in that state for so long? And I thank God and those that loved me through my ridiculousness daily. I embrace the chain that God puts into my life because I know where I was and how I came to be here today. So I encourage you to pray a dangerous prayer. What's holding you back from embracing change and finding peace in your life? Lay it down and let God mold you into who he created you to be, not into who you think you should be. A real, genuine faith requires us to actually believe that God will provide for us. When we take the focus off of us and what we can do, it makes trusting in God and what he can do much easier. Anxiety is all about me and nothing about God. That's why we are commanded to stop being anxious. God has a plan for every step of our life. Anxiety is only a stumbling block or a hindrance to walking the path that God has set for us. So I hope everybody heard what I said and understood that dangerous prayers are ways to have God enter into your heart and transform you into the person that he wants you to be. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I pressed the wrong button on my phone. But it is an opportunity for you to work with God and not for God. He wants us to be in a relationship with him and with each other. And if I hadn't been able to calm myself or to be calm through him, I wouldn't have been open to all the opportunities that he has placed in my life. And for that, calm me is a dangerous prayer. He goes before us every day, whether we have faith in him or whether we don't. So I hope today that you'll be thinking about the dangerous prayer that you have to pray for your life. I'm going to go ahead and close us in prayer. And I look forward to seeing all the comments, and hopefully you guys will join me this evening at either Scott McCracken's class on Facebook, or there's the Rockwood group that's at 5 o'clock, and there's a bunch of other things that happen. Just check the Facebook page and you will see. So Lord, forgive me for being weak and afraid in the past. Help me to be strong and courageous from here on. Deliver me from all the fears and panics as I face new trials and difficulties. Remind me that you will personally go ahead of me as I walk in your ways. I know you will not fail me. I know you will come through and deliver me just as you promised, because you always deliver on your promises. And when I feel like I'm alone and completely abandoned, Lord, bring this promise to my mind and help me to walk in faith. Thank you for never abandoning me, and help me to be a faithful warrior. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a great Sunday, guys, and happy Mother's Day.